All right, what's going on, y'all? So just wanted to share an update on a little experiment I've been doing here recently. I've been glucose testing since the very beginning, probably about 9 years ago. What's really cool is here recently, I think most of us have access to continuous glucose monitors, and they usually last for about 14 days. I'm not sure if you have to get a doctor's prescription. I just so happen to. They may be available to the general public. For me, with a prescription, it costs maybe about $70 for 2 weeks. Slightly expensive, but very informative. And a lot of what I've learned from it is, first of all, it confirms that what I'm doing is the right thing as far as the timing of meals and the space and the limiting of the carbohydrates. Because I have my average glucose is, I think, about 87 to 90 for an entire day, and that's over the span of a couple of weeks. But I have these situations that are really making me aware of the timing of my foods. And so one area that I feel like we're changing our stance on is, we always get the question, is it okay to eat just before bed? And in the beginning, we've always said that it's way more important to eat real food than it is to get too caught up in whether you eat close to bed or not. You just need to do what feels right for you. And I still think that that's true, that real food has to be the priority, and if that's the only time you can get that evening meal in, and it's the most conducive, then it's totally fine. But one thing that we know from the functions of sleep is it's the time that the body resets its metabolic state. And this is why fasting glucose and fasting insulin are such good measures of metabolic health. Because if your body has a chance to reset its metabolic state, then it's going to be much more sensitive throughout the day, the waking day, as far as utilizing nutrients and energy and storing nutrients and energy. So the fasting in your sleep is different from fasting when being awake, because when you're fasting when you're awake, of course you're going to have a low glucose, and that's our indirect measure of insulin, but you're also active. The body is all systems go. And when you're fasting when you sleep, then the body has a chance to heal, repair, detoxify, defragment the brain. And so if it's spending time dealing with digestive processes, especially in the upper GI or the stomach area, I think it takes away from that, which is why I feel like if we eat too close to bed or throughout the middle of the night, then we're going to see some abnormal or relatively higher fasting glucoses in the morning. So I have this habit of, well, first of all, usually we have dinner, and then we go to the dog park and come back, and usually we'll have like a little bit of a dessert, something like some fruit or banana yolk roll or something along those lines. And I don't know that that's necessarily a problem. I think a little bit of fruit, a little bit of starch before bed is fine, because those are super easy to digest. But that in combination with, I have this tendency to wake up in the middle of the night and sleep eat. And I go and get something fruity or sugary or something like that, usually some dried fruit. And my fasting glucose is kind of high. Like sometimes it's like 101, 110. I've had some mornings it was like 125, and it kind of scared me. And then of course, like within an hour or something, I'll see that go down back into the 90s and 80s. But there is this thing called the dawn effect, which is a phenomenon that a lot of people have higher glucose levels first thing in the morning because of the spike of cortisol, which mobilizes energy. So that makes a little bit of sense to have a relatively higher glucose in the morning, fasting glucose, than the rest of the day. But what it's made me very aware of is that I need to try to have a true fasting state when I'm sleeping. And so my goal for the next couple of weeks, or at least this next week, is to finish dinner a couple of hours before bed. We usually eat about 5:15, 5:30. We're in bed 7:30. I'm going to finish dinner, and then my goal is not to have anything after dinner for 2 hours, except for the exception, there's some tea with a little bit of honey. And then my goal is to fight not to get up in the middle of the night and do any snacking. And it doesn't happen every night, but it does happen sometimes. So my challenge to you is, you might want to experiment with this. Try to have dinner a couple of hours before bedtime. Give yourself some space for your food to move from the upper GI down into the small intestine, and maybe do a little bit of movement after dinner nothing intense, but like some walking. We go to the dog park. We're doing a little bit of strolling. That seems to help get your body to use a little bit of energy and get rid of some excess glucose from the meal. And then try to fast until you go to bed, and fast until the next morning. And just pay attention to how you look, feel, and perform. Now, obviously, if you have a glucometer, or you're fortunate enough to get one of these continuous glucose monitors, then you could check your blood sugar in the morning and just test and see how that is responding to that, okay? All right, so make it a great day, make it a great week. Reach out if you need some help, because that's what we're here for. All right, later.